One of the things that I'm very grateful to the Lord for is that as we prepare for challenges and battles, He gives us intelligence. He gives us information. He tells us what to look for. Tonight, our focus, do you know this is the 8th of 18, which means the next time we do it, we'll be halfway through, but this is the 8th one, and tonight we're going to focus on the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Who are these guys? How do we know them? So we're going to do a lot from Revelation tonight, and some from Daniel. I know we always do a lot from Revelation when we do Thursday nights, but we're also going to do some from Daniel, but we're going to start in Revelation 12, because Revelation 12 deals very directly with the question of who is the dragon. And of all three, the identity of the dragon is no mystery at all. We're told very clearly who the dragon is. So let me get into that in Revelation 12. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Anybody have any idea what the 12 stars might represent? 12 tribes of Israel. Very good. She was pregnant and crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. Does everybody know what a diadem is? It's a crown. Yeah, it's a crown. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. Okay, let me stop right here. When we read about the dragon trying to devour the child, we think, if you think about this too literally, you're thinking about, is he going to try and kill the baby Jesus? Or you might think, maybe this is a reference to when Herod sent the order out to kill all the 2-year-olds, and he was trying to kill the baby Jesus, but somehow he escaped. I don't think that's what it is. Satan's plot to kill Jesus succeeded. They did kill Jesus. They nailed him to a cross. The problem is Satan didn't know the whole plan. Satan thought that by killing the man Jesus, he would defeat God's plan for the redemption of mankind. Because the part of the plan that saw Jesus rise from the dead, Satan didn't know that. Do you realize this? Satan didn't know that part of the plan. So let's continue. Now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down. Now we're going to deal very explicitly with this question of what is the identity of the dragon, okay? The dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Okay, so who is the dragon? Satan. It's the easiest one. The other two are not as easy, but this one's easy. And it's made very explicit here. Every reference you hear, from the serpent going back to Genesis, to the devil, to the deceiver of the whole world, that's Satan. That's the dragon. Same guy, same spirit, same force of evil. I want to point out one other thing. This war that takes place in heaven, in which a third of the angels join with Satan in the war, and they're defeated and they're thrown down to heaven. Do you notice the timing of this war? What other event does it coincide with? It coincides with the birth of Jesus, because that's what's being described here, right? This is important because a lot of people get the idea, and I guess they just get it from hearing people talk about it, that the war in heaven, in which Satan was cast down and a third of the angels were cast down, a lot of people get the idea that the war in heaven preceded the creation, preceded the Garden of Eden, which is why you have Satan in the garden tempting Adam and Eve, because he'd already fallen. This war is contemporaneous to the birth of Jesus. That's when it happened. Okay, now, so the dragon is Satan. We're dealing tonight with their identities. It takes a little more work to figure out the beast and the false prophet. Oh, by the way, I'll give away this as part of I don't know who they are. I don't know who the beast is. I don't know who the false prophet is. There are some people I see out there that I think, but I have no prophetic revelation on that. I don't presume to be able to find it in Scripture. We're just told to look for certain things. So tonight I want to deal with what we're supposed to look for. So as far as the beast goes, let me first go to Revelation 13. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. Same description we saw in Revelation 12. 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear. Its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it, the dragon, who is the dragon, Satan, to it, the dragon, Satan, gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed. And the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" So what do we see so far? The beast has blasphemous names associated with it. The beast appears to have had a mortal wound, but the mortal wound is healed, almost like a counterfeit Jesus. And Satan has given authority to the beast, and people are absolutely enthralled with this beast. Here's a little more about him. And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all who dwell on earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. So what have we seen now? We've seen, first of all, he becomes very arrogant in his antipathy toward the people of the Lord. He's very aggressive, he's very arrogant, he's snide, he's mocking, he scoffs at us, and the world receives this pretty well. He even blasphemes the saints in heaven. And he manages to consolidate what appears to be global power. All right? He was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them, and authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. Now, I'll put it a little intersection with what I'm going to preach on Sunday, because on Sunday, we're going to start with the Tower of Babel. But the event that results from the Tower of Babel is the dispersing of the nations and all of the different nations and all of the different languages. What we see here is that the beast now consolidates authority over all of these nations, speaking all of these languages. Okay. Then, so that's the beast. We'll have a little more on him, but now we're going to come to the false prophet. And this gets a little confusing because we're still in Revelation 13, but the false prophet is first described as a second beast. So it gets a little confusing. When you're talking about the second beast, are you talking about the false prophet? Is it the same guy? Is there another guy? As you'll see, the second beast is the false prophet, but let me go through it. So picking up back in Revelation 13 and verse 11. Then I saw a second beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath. Stay with me on this one. It was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might speak and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Okay, so what we're saying here is this second beast, who is the false prophet, will not only be able to do all these other things, he will be able to create images of the first beast that can appear to be alive. They can speak and they can force you to do things. I don't know about you, this kind of sounds a lot like artificial intelligence to me, which is making me suspect that the false prophet might be a technology guy who is a supporter, a close advisor, a close confidant of the beast. Okay? Let me continue. Also, it causes all, both great and small, rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of the man. The number is 666. Okay. So the second beast, who hasn't yet been named as the false prophet, but as you'll soon see, that's who it is. The second beast basically applies pressure on people to worship and serve the first beast. He performs false miracles, even at least appearing to cause fire to come down from the sky. Well, I was pretty sure only God could do that. Or, I don't know, maybe he's somebody who's dealing in space technology or something. Because this is clearly a technology guy. He's using something that sounds an awful lot like AI to me to create images of the first beast that can speak, that can appear to breathe, and can make you do things. And he's also creating this new digital financial system that will be the only money system available, and you have to have these marks on your hand or your forehead to be able to use it. That's the false prophet. He serves the first beast. The first beast is the guy with the diadems and the blasphemous names and all of the authority over every people and every nation. And then this second guy is his helper. But he's more than just a helper. He exerts a lot of pressure and influence over the rest of the world. And he creates all of what sounds like technology to me to force people into these situations. By the way, one other thing about the number 666. I have not calculated it. I don't know whose number it is, but I would like to point something out about it. In the Bible, what is often identified as the number of perfection? 7. Yes, thank you. 7 is often identified as the number of perfection. How many perfect people, and I'm using the term persons in a certain way right now, but how many, I'll say persons, could we assign that number to? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. 7, 7, 7. 6 is short of 7. 6 is not as perfect as 7. It can appear to be pretty good, but it's not as good as 7. Dragon, beast, false prophet, all short of 7. 6, 6, 6. Just keep that in mind. Because I've heard some of the craziest theories about the 666, okay? Ronald Wilson Reagan. All 3 names have 6 letters. He must be the Antichrist. Barack Hussein Obama. If you move one letter from last name or from middle name to last name, Barack Obama must be the Antichrist. Okay, I've heard some of the craziest, and I've heard some other ones too. Like people try to take these Hebrew letters that can correspond to numbers and put them all together and figure out whose name adds up to 666. And it could be something like that. It could be a pitcher whose earned run average is 6.66. I don't know. But I do know this. If 7 is perfection, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, dragon, beast, false prophet. I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, let's get into Revelation 17, which we read a lot of this a few weeks ago when we were talking about Babylon, but I need to go through it again because we're going to find out some more things about the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet here. Revelation 17. Then one of the angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality with, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers of the earth have become drunk." And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names. We're back to the first beast, okay? And it had 7 heads and 7 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. Okay, just to be clear, we're not talking about the woman from Revelation 12. We're not talking about Mary here about to give birth to Jesus. We're talking about the woman who's represented by Babylon that we talked about a few weeks ago. All right? And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and the earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of saints, the blood of martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, "Why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the dwellers on earth whose names had not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come." In other words, the beast will appear to be killed, just like we talked about earlier, the mortal wound. It was and is not, because they think it's dead, but then it comes back, just like Jesus. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. Okay, real quick on this one. Here's my best theory about these 7 kings. 5 have been, 1 is now, 1 is to come. Okay. Trying to see if I can remember all these. Assyria, Babylon, Greece, the Romans. I'm having trouble. I should have written these down. But this is kind of my theory. We're talking about the various different empires that have been dominant in the earth over time. The one that would be dominant at the time this was being written would probably still be the Romans, if that's the reference. If the reference is to now, it could be this Babylon system, it could be something else. But my guess would be that the 5 kings to go, the one still to come, and then the 8th, these are who these kings are. They're empires that have come and gone on the earth. Okay? And picking up in verse 11. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. So the beast, if the beast is the 8th, and it belongs to the other 7, what that means is that all of these empires that came and gone were basically the building blocks for this Antichrist, for this man of sin, the building blocks over the course of history that set the stage for this guy to take power. And he's taking, unlike the other empires, who had authority over certain parts of the earth at certain times, he's going to have authority over all of it. And the 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they're to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. Okay, let me... I'm getting a little short on time, but I want to read you a bit from Daniel 7. Because in Daniel 7, you're going to see some stunning similarities to the descriptions of the beast in Revelation 12. Let me just find it. Okay. I'll pick up Daniel 7 in verse 6. And I looked, and behold, another like a leopard with 4 wings and a bird on its back. And the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this, I saw in the night visions, behold, a 4th beast, terrifying and dreadful and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in his horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now I want to skip down toward the end of Daniel 7. Pick it up in verse 19. Then I desired to know the truth about the 4th beast, who is different from all the rest, exceedingly terrifying, and its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet, and about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell, and the horn that had eyes and a mouth and spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. And I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them until the Ancient of Days came. And judgment was given the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. So the beast with the 10 horns, described in Revelation 12, described also in Daniel 7. And Daniel also speaks of the beast speaking haughty, blasphemous, he brags. That's how arrogant this man is. He makes war against the saints. He takes global power over every nation and every language. And you'll remember it says he's given power for 42 months, which is 3.5 years. So if the tribulation period is 7 years, the question is, what happens after the 3.5 years? because the 3.5 years the 7 years seem to be divided into into halves. First half 3.5, second half 3.5. So this is what we know. We know that the dragon is Satan. We know that the beast is a man who will gain global power and authority. And once he's consolidated that authority, he will use it to make war against us, against the saints. And the most lethal way he'll do that is he'll force us to make a choice between taking this mark, which would seal our eternal fate and not in a good way, or having no legal way to buy or sell anything, okay? And then we know that the false prophet is basically a servant or mouthpiece of the beast. But he uses his position to do pretty amazing things and pretty evil things to force us into worshiping the first beast. And we also know that he can do counterfeit signs like making fire appear to come down from the sky, creating this image of the first beast that seems to be able to speak and do all these things. So this is what we're getting into. So we come to the question, and it's 8 o'clock, who is the beast and who is the false prophet? I don't know. And neither do you. And neither do they. But we know the things to look for. When we see somebody consolidating power like this, we can recognize it. We know some other things. We know the world will be very impressed by this guy. The world will be enthralled by him. They will recognize that he's very hostile toward Christians, but that's not going to bother them. They're going to be under the impression that he survived a fatal mortal wound, or that he came back from the dead. They'll be under that impression. They will be under the impression that his buddy, the false prophet, can do miracles, even involving fire coming from the sky. And they'll be very enthralled by all the technology and gadgets they come up with. Now, I know I've told you in a previous week, one of the ways, and this is more what I've heard from the Spirit. This is a detail you won't find in the Scripture, so I'll say that up front. But what I'm hearing from the Spirit is that he will use the coming fiscal crisis as a way to gain power. And I'm talking about the fiscal crisis that sees us as a nation $35 trillion in debt. And I think I told you the night I talked about this, that the total national debts of all the nations in the world is over $170 trillion. And that doesn't even count the entitlement obligations. So we have our Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and every year we pay more and more into that system, and we don't have the money. And our Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid obligations over the course of the next, I think, 35 or 40 years is over $100 trillion. We don't have that. And other nations have similar obligations, and they don't have it either. So look for someone to note this problem, which is quickly becoming a crisis, and offer a solution. And it will be a solution the world will be very impressed by. And they will start to see this guy as a godlike type of figure, and he will welcome the worship. He will welcome the worship. People will give it to him. He'll start acting more like a God, but not our God. Not a loving God, not a merciful God, not the kind of God who creates, but the kind of God that demands everyone's loyalty and everyone's servitude or else. And the proposition will basically be, the only way out of our problem is to follow this guy. How dare you not support him when he's prepared to solve our problem? That's who we're looking for. I don't even think, because I was tempted to ask the question, does anybody have any theories about who it might be? No, I'm not going to ask that question, because that opens a whole can of worms that I don't want to open up. I will tell you there's a person or two that I'm keeping an eye on. And there are certain things that I see that make me go, oh boy, that really does sound. But then there are other things I'm like, yeah, that doesn't fit though. So I don't know. I don't know if it's someone that we already know of, someone who's already in our consciousness, someone who's already prominent, but we don't yet know who it is. But I do know whoever it is, he's going to have a buddy. And the buddy is the false prophet. And the buddy does all these other things too, does the false miracles, invents the gadgets, helps create the systems. But the most important thing that the false prophet does is he puts pressure on people to worship the beast. Now, I did not get in tonight to the question of where they end up, because that'll be another discussion. Tonight was focused on how do we recognize who they are. The dragon we know, that's made very explicit, that's Satan. One last thing. The fact that they're both described as beasts, there's a couple things to know about that. One is that it fits the nature of apocalyptic literature, okay? So there is a sense in which it can be simply metaphoric. But I would also say this. We know that principalities, powers, rulers of the air, the kind of people that I've been talking about on Sunday mornings, we're going to do that again this Sunday morning too, by the way. We know that they can torment, mislead, and influence people. My sense of it would be that there's some sort of an evil spirit behind each of these two guys. So although we will be talking about human beings we can recognize, we will also be talking about spiritual forces behind them. Because it says right in Revelation 13 that the dragon is the one who gives the authority to the beast. So he doesn't have it without getting it from Satan. But I think there are other spirits at work who are aligned with Satan, who are basically in these two guys. And that's about what we know about the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet as of April 24th, 2025. Be vigilant. Pay attention. Remember the details we went through tonight. And keep an eye out and see who might fit them. All right? That's what I got for you tonight.